Show on stage. Show on stage. Hide from stage.
Sorry, is it better now? Can you hear me?
Yes, finally.
Hey guys.
Hey, hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Vishesh, it's really cold in Delhi, huh? You're wearing like a turtleneck and stuff.
I think now it should work.
Huh?
Is it still not?
You can hear
You're
me.
audible, Vishesh,
Hello?
but it's breaking in between.
Correct. Hey, Bhavik.
Hey, what's up? Good afternoon, guys. Sanil.
Hey guys,
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
and hey, hi everyone. Vishesh, which part of Delhi are you in? I'm not feeling that cold.
It's weird. Sorry, Utsav, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Now we can hear you, yes. So how many logging in from Bombay? Utsav, you are
Just
here?
give me 1 second. I need to
Bombay?
rejoin. I think there's something wrong with this. I don't know. Give me 1 second.
I'm Bombay. You're Bombay, Bhavik. I think
Manu, you are Bombay as well, right?
Manu is
No,
Delhi.
yeah, I moved to Delhi, so I'm in Delhi right now.
Because I remember a conversation around you being in Bandra. I think
So yeah, I was there for 17 years. Just moved about 6 months back.
Why would you do that to yourself, Manu?
I know, man. Don't ask. Do not ask that question. To be addressed to the wife. So.
Especially Bandra, right? Like if you're living in some other part of Bombay, I still get it.
मतलब यार, please do not rub it in. Already conceded the point. So.
Harsha, where are you at? Ameya, where are you at?
I live in Gurgaon, but currently in Surat.
Yeah, recently moved from Delhi to Bombay.
Are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah.
Do you miss Delhi, Neha?
What do you call? Heart is where home is. So, but I like Bombay though.
Which part of Bombay are you in, Neha?
So the office is in Lower Parel, so I left somewhere close by only.
Okay. Bhavik, catch up is due, yeah? Is Karun here?
I know, and we have a common friend in town as well. Before he heads back to Singapore. Yeah. He's here.
Been a while. Let's catch up.
In fact, he's in the other conference room right now as we speak.
Oh man. Follow.
Yeah, he's spending some time. Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Vishesh, you're audible.
I think Murphy's Law kicked in, as it should have been. So, yeah, I will just wait for a second to go live.
Vishesh, how easy or hard are you going to go on us? You have a group of
It's just
group of your close friends on this panel.
That's what the purpose was. So I've got all my friends, so at least no one will complain.
Where do we complain also?
Yeah. I think we're just waiting on Pramod to join.
Yeah, he's facing a couple, I think a link issue. He's just dropping it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that should help him.
Neha, how long you been with Mumbai Angels?
Over 3 years now.
Do you know Chirag? Chirag Punjabi?
Yeah.
Okay, he's joining us.
Oh, okay. Good to
Yeah.
hear.
Hey, Sanil, are we meeting for drinks? That's right. Am I meeting you or am I meeting Ishan?
I mean, drinks you should. I wish I knew, but I think it's Ishan. But yeah, hopefully me soon. Should catch up.
Absolutely, man.
Honestly, I was hoping Vishesh, last time he was in Bombay, he told me he's going to do a physical event and call all of us.
So yeah, COVID kicked in. I think it's still due, but COVID kicked in again.
But you still have to do a happy hours, and Shiprocket is buying us all drinks.
Absolutely. I think we're good to go live. Hi, Pramod. Can you hear us?
I can, yes. Sorry, but I just had some technical issues.
No, that's perfectly fine. Thank you for joining. So I think we're good to start. So how I can structure this particular session is I'll start with introduction, and I think it's better that everyone can introduce themselves. It's actually better, and then we have 1 hour on the panel. We'll spend about 30 to 45 minutes with going across the panel with a couple of questions, and then we'll open it up for the audience to ask any questions if they have. And I think I'll start with Neha. So Neha is Principal Mumbai Angels Network. Neha leads portfolio and manages exit verticals at Mumbai Angels. And it's in total, I think you are already managing over 170 startups across 24 sectors. Anything that you'd like to add to this, Neha?
It's now 190 plus, and yeah, along with portfolio, I also manage the new investments at MA.
Perfect. And thank you for joining us. And we'll move on to Sanil. Sanil is founding partner Huddle. And I'll let Sanil introduce himself, and I'll touch upon the author part a bit during the session, because that's one unique thing. We'll definitely touch upon that during our session.
Well, thanks, Vishesh. I think this is a great panel. I'll keep it short. At Huddle, we concentrate anything on ventures that are going to disrupt future, or they'll solve for the future and they'll disrupt traditional ways of working. We've got some great founders here who are doing just that. But at Huddle, of course, with Rocket Fuel Huddle, our concentration has been on D2C, anything to do with the enablement ecosystem. So I think funding options are plenty, and there's so many great perspectives here. I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you, Sanil. Thank you for joining us. And we'll move on to Utsav. Utsav is founder Evenflow, and I hate to define it that way, but it's Thrasio. But while it's a company, it's now become one of the defining definition words. It's actually phenomenal how it's turned out as a company. But please, Utsav, please go ahead if you can tell us more about Evenflow.
Thanks, Visish. Thanks for having me here. So yes, I'm the co-founder and CEO at Evenflow. We basically look to acquire, operate, and scale profitable e-commerce sellers. One of the things that I'd like to clarify, there's a strong distinction between an e-commerce seller that is running a business on the back of platforms like Amazon, Flipkart versus a D2C brand. The former is a business, the latter is a startup. So we're focused on the former, and we've been around for 1 year. Yeah, that's our story in short.
Thank you, Utsav, for joining us. And we'll move on to Manu. Manu is founder and managing partner at Sauce VC. And I'll leave it to Manu to introduce Sauce and what they do at Sauce.
Yeah, thanks, Vishesh, and pleasure to be on this panel. Sauce, is an early stage first check investor in consumer brands, and we invest in digital first and omni-channel brands. We also invest in folks who are building sort of the building blocks to enable D2C brands to perform better. So between the entire sort of brands and enabler ecosystem is where we play at a super early stage. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'll move on to Akshay. Akshay, if you could switch on your video as well. Can you hear us? Anyways, I think while Akshay figures out there's some technical issue, but I'll move on to Pramod. Pramod is partner at Tata Capital Growth Fund. And with over 21 years of experience in financial services across India and UK, I think you are the most experienced of us all on the panel. And I'll let Pramod tell us more about how Tata is looking at this.
I think that's a nice way Vishesh of saying you're the oldest also, which I am. There's no hiding away from the fact. But yeah, the space is very interesting, and we are in our second fund. We manage about $400 million. And so just not to take up too much time, but urbanization was a huge trend for us in Fund 1. And now we are playing that in Fund 2 as well. But we pivoted and done some interesting investments in not necessarily D2C, but D2C continues to remain areas of focus for us. So I'm hoping all you guys bring your companies up to speed, and then maybe you can look at me for some dilution.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what I think everyone's hoping for as well. And I'll move on with to Bhavik. And Bhavik is founder at GetVantage, a revenue-based financing startup. And I'll let Bhavik tell us more about that.
Hey, thank you, Vishesh. I think so much fun to be with friends on this panel. And to put it very interestingly, since we are in context with Shiprocket, what we do at GetVantage is essentially we are an alternative fuel and funding platform for all those emerging brands and businesses. Like Utsav said, whether a D2C brand or an Amazon seller, we can fund you all. And Pramod, we fund all of these businesses to get to scale so that they can come and raise the equity from you. And we do that in a non-dilutive way. So growth capital and revenue-based funding for all those businesses that are growing and emerging out there.
Thank you, Bhavik. I think that's how we have also designed the panel. It's all kinds of financing opportunities across D2C, what is available. With Utsav, with acquisition opportunities with Bhavik, save your equity financing. And then, of course, with Pramod, with Tata, I think if you are at a scale, how are late stage funds looking at this? So I think we've designed it from all sides so we can get perspectives from everyone. And I think Akshay is back. So Akshay, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can. I'm sorry, guys.
Cool.
After years of getting onto Zoom call, we still face this problem.
That's true. So Akshay is lead investments at Fluid Ventures, and I'll let Akshay introduce what Fluid Ventures does and how are they looking at D2C as a space.
Sure, definitely. Thanks, Vishesh. Good to see some of the very familiar faces from the D2C ecosystem. We are a SEBI-registered venture capital fund, totally focusing on direct-to-consumer investments. We are investing in digital-first products at this point of time. Launched back in last year, 7 months back. We are already at our fifth investment at this point of time. We want to close this financial year, at a seventh investment. Our focus totally is to invest in the companies which are at a ARR of close to 6 crore at this point of time. Give them money, just to infuse that money in the marketing, and then help those brand grow, globally. So that's what we are doing at Fluid. Personally, I have been in this space for last 7 years. Started as an entrepreneur, did investment banking for a couple of years, and then my venture capital stint for last 2 years. So that's what I have been up to.
Sure. And thank you, Akshay. Thank you for joining us. And I think, welcome everyone. I'll start with the most obvious question, I think, and this is open to the entire panel. And over the last decade, I think what we have seen, the entire VC ecosystem had been focused upon tech startups, and that's how it was designed. But I think over the last 36 months, and that's what I have been seeing, we have seen a complete shift in terms of how VCs have started looking at D2C as a very, very prominent category. And also now to the extent of where funds have finally carved out a niche and focusing directly on that consumer brands. So this is to everyone. Why the shift now? And what are the categories that everyone's looking at and most bullish about?
I'll take a stab at it, right? I'm not going to give a philosophical answer. If you walk into a retail store in the US, any retail store, you'll see hundreds of brands. You just won't see a Coca-Cola, a Pepsi, but you'll see 100 different types of cola drinks and chips and everything. I think India has been a brand-starved country. Now with digitization, with internet, now is the right time to build brands, and that's what the young entrepreneurs are going after. And I think this is the building blocks. With companies like Shiprocket and multiple others, it's become easier than ever to launch a brand and get to the 0 to 1 journey. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's taken off.
I think that's perfectly true. And I'll move on to Sanil. I think, Sanil, you get engaged with these brands very, very early on in their journey and starting from acceleration. How do you see this growing, and why is now D2C becoming such an important area for venture capital? And your take on this?
There are a couple of points that I'll limit to, but I think one of the key areas is the consumer today has just a variety of opportunities. They have the options they have, as well as there's a large audience that is aspirational, and then they've got a certain ambition, and then there's a capability that they can meet with regards to their aspirations. So I think the D2C ecosystem has multiple stratas that it can cater to, from mass to premium and everything else that comes in between. The variety of consumers there are and the variety of options they have in order to purchase, consume, has enabled D2C to grow at the speed it has. And in the early days, it's really about realizing that not everything D2C is a need. I think that's what we have to also realize. It's also an innate want, and that want comes from the right kind of marketing and communication D2C enables you to do, because it's a direct communication with your prospective consumer. And I feel that's been something that communicates better with the kind of audience, and the vast audience that D2C targets. And I'll limit to the other point. I'll pass it over to the friends here, that I think in terms of trends that we're also now seeing that's working out, we're also seeing a lot of enablers take up the job in building these D2C brands. So suddenly when you start seeing enablement as part of a large ecosystem that's growing, that's actually, for me personally, I see that as a foundation that D2C is not just here to stay, but it's going to continuously grow leaps and bounds, because now the enablers times also come in to grow. So yeah, I'll sort of pause there, Vishesh.
I agree with.
If you allow me to jump in, because I wanted to stretch on Sanil's point, is fundamentally, I think let's also stretch at the onset of this chat, stretch the definition of the word D2C, right? It very quickly gets talked about D2C as just e-commerce or product company. I think what technology, what Utsav said, what Sanil is saying is, and why VCs have taken interest in this space now is, I think every business is D2C because of technology and enablement, every business, whether product or service, can actually reach its consumers, transact, engage, and collect revenues also in a direct fashion. And I think that's the larger, broader part of how businesses can scale. And I think all types of investments look at businesses that can scale exponentially. And I think that's how at Advantage we really talk about D2C is every business, whether product or service, can reach its consumers and interact and transact directly with those consumers. And I think that, Vishesh, let's set that as the larger context as well.
Yeah, I'll just add on to
Thank you
what
for that.
Bhavik.
Thank you.
So I agree. See, as an
Please,
investor,
Neha.
we want an opportunity which has a potential to scale. And what enabled D2C to be attractive to investor is one, from the side of startups. There are a lot of models. There are a lot of entrepreneurs trying to fill the gap of it could be a price, or it could be some innovation they have brought to the existing product. But also in terms of adoption, these new generation, they want to try something new. I
And I think
think
that's where we are seeing the adoption as well, because trying something new the trust wasn't actually there. With now
yes.
brands who have scaled in matter of 18, 24 months, the adoption is the proof of adoption is definitely there. And I'll just move to Pramod. I think with your experience and Tata Group having a vast portfolio of consumer-focused brands, how do you look at? Uh, I think he's lost connection. I think we'll wait for Pramod to join, and I'll continue my question. But moving on to you, Akshay, and your fund is, like you said, is only focused on D2C as a space, right?
Correct.
How have you identified this space as big enough to only focus upon that as a fund? Because it's
No,
it's a
definitely. I
big
think
market, right? Capital. Yeah, please go ahead.
correct. Definitely. I
Sorry,
think
guys, can you hear me?
Yes, Pramod, we can.
Oh, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I think you posed a question to me and then I may have
Yes,
lost
yes.
connection.
So
no, please,
Should I
please
go
go ahead.
ahead?
Yes, yes, please,
yeah,
please.
please. I do you want? I can repeat it again, but if
No,
you
that's
have
fine.
heard
I'll
the
just give
question,
you
please.
some broad points that all of the experts on the panel so far have made, which are absolutely spot on. And this trend is here to stay. We saw it, I think, with the onset of Reliance's massive fundraisings in June, July of 2020, is when the floodgates really started opening up, and everyone became aware that what the potential of the of e-commerce is, and enablement of data prices just plummeting, phones becoming more easily accessible to just about everybody. Now there's a whole ecosystem out there, and as Sanil rightly pointed out, there's so many enablers also. You have like 650, 700 D2C brands. Almost 60 are north of $15 million in ARR, and maybe at least 20 to 30 are greater than $50 million in ARR. So you just need to pick, from my perspective, you just need to pick areas that make sense, where early investors, pre-series A and series A and maybe even series B, have brought it to a certain scale, and then there's that little bit of juice that is left to move it to the next level of growth, either through an IPO or through strategic activity, which again is also becoming more and more prominent. We saw Marico buying Beardo, Imami's in Man Company. So I think all of the large conglomerates, and you talked about Tata. Tata's made tons of acquisitions also, and I think
Yes.
they may continue to. But I can't speak for the wider group, but I can only speak for my fund. Lots has happened, lots will happen, but you may just see a stage of consolidation, and there are bound to be winners in the sectors that have grown so rapidly, and there'll be a little bit of a shakeout to throw a little bit of a contrarian view. And now capital needs to find a home where the founders, I'm sorry to say, are slightly more efficient in using that capital. So the growth has happened. Everyone is grateful for the growth, but now the next level of value creation will happen through profitable growth, is how I would like to term it.
Absolutely. And just one more question adding on to that is, you mentioned Marico acquiring Beardo. Just picking up on that is, why acquire, not build? So how, with the resources at hand with large companies like Marico, and they could anyone could just say ki why acquire, not just enter the market with those categories and build it themselves.
Yeah, so buy versus build is always a boardroom discussion for these large companies like Marico. And again, I think it cuts speed to market. So maybe that was one of the reasons why they went ahead with the acquisition. But also, if you look at all of FMCG brands and the large ones, if you go back 8, 10 years and see how many new products they've introduced, as opposed to how many new products D2C companies have introduced, and you will be staggered. Dabur, the likes of Godrej, they introduce a few products every few years, as opposed to many products every few months that D2C potentially can. So that the nimbleness of the founders, the agility, the ecosystem, and the technology is all supporting D2C to continue to grow and flourish.
Absolutely. I think the key here is the innovation. What founders are able to identify a small niche pocket of buyers and completely design products around them is acting as a big driver of growth for this particular segment. And we have seen a lot of very, very unique brands coming out. And at Shiprocket, we have been seeing so many of them who completely surprise us with their growth and numbers on a very single 2, 3 SKU portfolio. I think that's completely there. And moving back to Akshay, so the question remains the same. Why only focus the fund completely to D2C alone? Because end of the day, your job is to deploy capital. Why not open up your horizon and open up your options a little bit wider?
No, I think I am totally in sync with what Utsav said in the start, and then Pramodji added to it, right? As a fund, it's a huge space, right? At this point of time, and people want premium products in India. It just came in. It's a consumer market, and we feel it's a so big market that there is so much of space which can be filled with these innovative products, right? And we feel we are at the right time, right space, helping these young founders out, and building an ecosystem for them at this point of time. So yeah, I think D2C fund makes a lot of sense for us at this point of time, and we feel definitely going forward for us as a fund as well. We want to open our horizon going forward, but I think at this point of time, D2C makes a lot of sense for us, and we were helping founders in whatever capacity we can as a fund.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the big areas for all of funds. I think it's not just capital we are
Correct.
bringing in, it's all the support that is needed for the community. And that's helping everyone grow together. And
Correct.
moving on, I think D2C was bound to grow, but I think COVID changed a lot in behaviors, in investment strategies, and just overall growth kind of it short circuited the entire growth cycle by a couple of years. How do you all look at, is this behavioral shift or is it temporary growth and it's going to simmer down and as we come out of pandemic?
In one line, I would say it shifted the baseline. It's not going back. We're not going
For
back to
sure.
the old ways. It shifted the baseline. I think India's e-commerce penetration was about 4.9. There's no report or data that has come out for 2021, but all of us would peg that about 6.57. And if a COVID hadn't happened, it would have been under 6. So it's shifted the baseline, and that's here to stay.
Got it.
Vishesh, another way to give a good comparison of how the Indian consumer really shifts pattern behavior, and there is stickiness after this. My own personal journey as a fintech operator, founder. Look, Demon was the other such event that happened. Demonetization drastically shifted consumer behavior towards digital payments, and that hasn't changed. We can always keep talking about how much did it accelerate or not, and I think the COVID was a similar such moment for B2C or direct to consumer kind of taking off. I don't think there is any reversal. It's just the trajectory of how quickly we keep growing from here on.
Got it. I think the sentiment is, I think, common across the panel and it's here to stay. And
Just one
moving
one
on,
thought, Vishesh, if I may.
yes, please,
While
sir.
it's here to stay, and now that the world is sort of opening up, I would love to see, and the next few months will tell us how this aggressive the shift is to an omni-channel. So lots of people who may have been waiting on the sidelines are going to accelerate their capex for an offline play. So I see the pie is obviously going to grow, but we might be underestimating a little bit what offline share might be. Of course, it depends on the categories and the products, but it's the next few months. God, forbid, if we don't get another wave, then we'll see offline picking up in a bigger way.
Yeah, and I think we are seeing the signs of it. And with the new quick commerce wave, the speed of delivery, omni-channel just becomes even more important as we move in the journey. One of the questions I had from Manu, I think, and it was a very interesting one. One of your portfolio includes Mokobara, the luggage brand. They started in a category that is completely dominated by the brands, legacy brands, with old 20, 30 years in the industry, with their manufacturing to distribution line set up. It was a very hard category to even think about entering, but they kind of carved out their own space in the whole play. Why do you think, how are they able to figure this out? How are they able to compete with the large ones? How are they able to compete? And it's not like they are competing on price. They are completely competing on quality and innovation in the category. How are you
Yeah.
looking at this, and what's your take on them?
Yeah, I think in this category specifically, what has happened is that there is a new generation of consumers that has emerged, and the classic millennial Gen Z cohort, for whom travel is a lifestyle, right? And you combine travel with social. They these guys want to travel, and then they also want to talk a lot about where they traveled, right? And for them, therefore, luggage is not just about sort of a utility piece, right? It's far more aspirational. There is a massive sort of connect about the visual appeal of the product. And your incumbent brands, the Safaris and the VIPs of the world, just do not connect with the consumer who's looking for, the younger consumer who's looking for something very stylish, very aspirational. And this category, if you look globally, is entirely driven by design. The functionality is a given. It's having silent wheels and a good sort of assembly mechanism. So these guys are really design first thinkers, and for us, the kind of design thinking first which they brought to the table is what reflects in the brand. And that's, they've hit that spot with that specific target audience and just grown. And every other brand is sort of playing to a different TG, but this was a very large segment that no one was talking to. So, and the other incumbents who got slightly more premium products, like a Samsonite, for instance, is an extremely boring grays, blacks, and beiges corporate traveler brand, right? So
Yeah,
it was an absolute white space and kind of no brainer for us, given the strength of the team, right, in digital and in
I think,
design.
yeah,
So that's
and
what
that's what
really
identifying is all about. So,
yeah.
just identifying that small niche and building a brand in that niche. And I'll just move to Neha for a second. Yeah, you, as a angel network, right? You are backed by a large number of angels, and it's not a decision making by one individual, or I think it's acted by a group. How are you seeing individuals responding to this? Do they see this as a good investment opportunities? How are you looking at, and how are all the wider HNIs looking at this?
Sure. So, as you rightly started the session with the first question, that how the shift bit from technology to D2C. So at Mumbai Angels also, till early 2010s, we were only focused on tech-enabled startups. But with as there were new investors, there were new younger generation coming to invest in this asset class, and we were looking at more and more interest on consumer products and brands, and the D2C segment and skincare, food, even badam tea. Like, I think one of our hit portfolio company, which actually defined this sector as one of the key sector from our investment thesis, was badam teas. So there has
A
been a
very, very
good
big
good
example.
yeah, sorry.
A very big example.
Yes,
Tea
yes,
is
of
like
course.
the most commoditized product, and they finally found their niche in that category.
The
It's a
fastest
very, very
growing
fastest
in
growing
our
one.
portfolio, the best company who gave the earliest, quickest exit to some of the investors.
Got it. And this another big, and moving on to Utsav, I think when the whole Thrasio news articles started coming in, and most lot of D2C founders started looking at this as their exit opportunity. And what does it take? What do you look at when you say this is worth acquiring for and we can help them scale? How does the economics work on this model when you are already paying a premium to buy a certain brand? How does it work in this ecosystem? You're on mute, Utsav.
We're the most frugal e-commerce aggregator in the country right now. We are only looking at businesses that are profitable and that are generating majority of their revenue, 70-80% plus, from third-party marketplaces, which are the Amazons, the Flipkarts, the Nykaa, and the rest. And we are buying these brands sellers at between 3 to 5x of trailing 12 months EBITDA. So we're not paying a premium. We're actually paying a very good price for a profitable business that is either hit its inflection point or it's about to hit its inflection. And going back to this tying in the buy versus build question, right? We're actually doing a blend of both. We're also taking the build approach with a couple of categories and white spaces that we've identified. The buy approach is to speed our access to the market and get the sales velocity on our books. At the end of the day, these sellers, what they've done well is they've created listings on Amazon, Flipkart, and other channels, which are highly rated in categories or subcategories that are essentially fragmented and unbranded and are have strong unit economics. So if we are able to buy these businesses at 4.5, max 5x EBITDA, we are able to pay off the debt in 2.5 years, turning it into a cash cow for us. So this might not be apt for a D2C brand that is looking to build a brand out of it. And I'll give you an example. Bold Care, one of Huddle's portfolio. I had spoken to the founder 10 months back. I think he worked with Huddle for a while. And he was the one who connected me to Sunil at the end of the day. They had a completely different charter. They wanted to build a brand and not just focus on Amazon. So that was not a good fit for us.
Got it. And a very, very common debatable question here is, if the metrics you mentioned, if I'm profitable, I have good sales growth going, if I'm making money as a lifestyle business, and then I have Bhavik and revenue-based financing to fuel my growth further, why sell? Why would I sell? What's the argument there?
Great question. 90 out of 100 sellers would not sell. But if you think about it, if a business is doing 5 crores top line with about 20% EBITDA, that money, 1 crore, is not actually changing their lifestyle or upgrading their lifestyle. That is getting sucked into working capital. And it's being on a treadmill, right? If you don't keep increasing your inventory, you lose out on the rankings on Amazon, which in turn will make you lose your sales velocity. Yes, I think Bhavik is a great example. And we've actually suggested to a lot of sellers who are not interested in selling that please go scale your business and then probably come to us. I think it's just having multiple options. And we as a group of 8 people are repping all of those. There is VC capital on the table. There is revenue-based financing, no equity. And we are happy to consider looking at a majority or a full acquisition.
Got it. And I'll actually add to your answer for a little bit here. I think it's also, if I can design and innovate a product, it also gives me the initial capital to design more of them. So I think it's also helping us move on from one product to another or a different business idea. It's that help also that comes in with the capital upfront. I think that's also there. One of the opportunities a lot of people realize and use it for that.
Just one thing I'll add more, right? And this has also been a learning for us in the last 12 months. A seller demographic looks very different from a D2C. A D2C is a company. It's professionals who are coming together to run a business. A seller is a Kirana mind store guy who's running the business as a 1 or 2 promoter with about 6 to 8 blue collar jobs. He doesn't have a team around him. Even a business that's doing about 20-30 CR annual turnover run by 2 or 3 people. It's a difference in mindset.
Understood. No, fair point, I think. And overall, when it comes to investment decisions, right? And this is open to entire panel, I think. when there are a lot of categories that could stagnate at a certain point, right? If your portfolio includes 8 to 10 of those SKUs, and then there's a large capital needed to design more SKUs, what's the point where you take a decision that this brand can turn this investment returns into 8 to 10x? Where does the growth end? Because there has to be a cap somewhere. If you're only into a certain category, which are those categories that could be the most prominent ones in this space in today's D2C ecosystem?
I- I'm gonna take a jab at this so I can try and cover as many answers before everyone pitches in.
Sure.
I think more importantly, I think so. I really want to direct a question actually to all of us. I think what this implies to also is the phenomenon of house of brands coming in, right? At what level do you keep building where there is a ceiling, but then there's also more branches that we can create. So I think I'll give an example, and I'll take this from a brand that the team at Sauce, Manu, and us at Huddle have had the ability. I'm a user of it. It's a brand called Perfora, and I've seen how Sauce has been building. They're an oral care brand, building it phenomenally, going at a market again. Like Mokabara, focusing on oral care. Very little disruption has taken place. It was all about style, premiumness, and repetitive communication to ensure that you're creating trust. But by the end of it, I think where the question occurs that how much do you keep building versus how much do you acquire a newer consumer? So where I'm going to pause without actually answering anything is, I think for a startup in the early days, and I speak as an accelerator and an early stage fund, you first have to figure out who your most trusted consumers are and how far their own reach is of creating referrals, if that's the right term that comes to me right now. How can they create a cult around? I mean, oral care. I used to use Colgate because the family uses it. Now everyone uses Sephora because we use it. So you have to figure out how far your consumer can go, how many consumers like this can you target, and then where does the baton get passed on? I pass it on to anyone who wants to take a jab at it. That do we collaborate in this whole house of brands phenomenon, or do we realize now I've seen certain skincare brands going outside skincare, or do you play with your solutions and realize solution can help me into a new category?
And I think I'll just would like to add something from Pramod. You look at countries that have actually crossed a certain scale, right? Like you said, end of the day, there is a ceiling, and how do you grow profitably will become a challenge. Where do you start seeing, at what scale do you consider the brand has actually made it, and it's going to now, the gates are open and it's going to grow from here?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and also depends on the category, because I've seen some really scaled up brands in kids apparel, in men's and women's innerwear, and so there is no numeric answer I can put on the table. But I would imagine a 10 to 12 million ARR is a reasonably good sized company that the early stage investors have been able to bring it to that stage, and then mid stage guys like us can hopefully take that 10 12 ARR to maybe 25 and 30, and then see how we can make it worth everyone's while to stay invested. um, but yeah, just commenting on this house of brands approach and sort of product extensions, what I've seen in the last 15 or 20 D2Cs that we spent some time with, no generalizing, but generally when growth tapers off, there's always this thought of what next. So I would really like to see some of these companies just keep chugging away and trying to get scale, and then eventually profitability will come with unit economics, with larger AOVs, and reduced CACs and increased LTVs. So I would really like to see some of these companies stay the course, don't deviate from their strategy, so to speak, and then build scale and depth within one horizontal. And also, Vishesh, you had questions further on, should you go international, etc. But we say we have 1.3 billion people, we have 150 million internet users, 44% of women are coming online. So if the market is so large and we find founders, etc., looking to grow abroad, even if they are neighboring geographies, generally I don't know, I don't it doesn't excite me that much.
Understood. No, I think the number that you mentioned, 10 to 12 million ARR, at Shiprocket, we do have access to a couple of them, and we are seeing quite a few of them crossing that number. I think a lot of founders should take that as a target to, for themselves at least, that
And
these are the right metrics to follow, and that's a great suggestion and thesis to follow. And thank you for that. And lastly, before I open up for audience questions, I'll just move on to Bhavik once. Bhavik, what's the advantage? Cap revenue based financing or any other financing versus traditional equity
I
financing.
haven't paid him anything to plug in the brand name there, but go ahead, Vishesh. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, well, sorry. So where do you see how does revenue based financing versus equity financing play out? What's the pros and cons there?
No, look, I think the macro theme and a slightly contrary theme I want to leave with every founder, every brand building it out there, is, as Pramod said, as a lot of my co-panel said, get to scale, but own enough of your business. Look, all forms of capital are needed. I will not sound controversial and say you need only one over the other. I think every business needs some amount of equity capital. They need some amount of long-term capex and growth capital, but you need to take in all forms of capital. And Manu and me have debated this as well. Why take this kind of debt when there is other options available? I'll tell you, one of the only things that India still suffers is in D2C and product companies. Vishesh, you and me have spoken about this. Brands that have scaled in the last, the valuations are very low. We saw that businesses, before they get to the 10 million ARR, the founders have no skin in the game left, right? And now with more options like what Utsav and some fellows are bringing in, which is a consolidation pieces, you can build a brand getting to 100 crores of revenue, build it profitably, stay true to your products and categories and adjacents without having lost a lot of ownership in your business. And I think, be it revenue-based financing, short-term debt, or any other forms of alternative capital, keep focusing on your growth and your ARR, and take in all different sides of capital. And I think that's what I want to leave as a play with the founders, that India is a large enough market. We're always going to have 10, 20 players in every category. It's not going to be a one winner take it all model. And some will take the route of valuations and exit and house of brands, and some would remain as good, profitable small businesses. We are ultimately a land of small businesses that are now just going online instead of the Kirana mom and pop shop. So I think take in all forms of capital and at the right phase, at the right time for your next milestone that you want to achieve as a business.
I think it's a hybrid approach, and founders are lucky to have all options today available to them. Starting with, if you're short term, if you want to meet short term goals, why sacrifice equity for that? I think then the revenue based financing or any other these kind of short term financing can help you in your journey. And when you're looking at long term goals, capex investments, and other kind of product design investments, then of course look at equity investments, because those investments will take a while to turn back returns. I think it's a hybrid approach, and it's all about, it's a strategy that one has to take, when to take what, and we have options available for. I'll then for now open up to questions if there are questions from audience. If my team can just share some of them on the screen, and we'll let the panel answer a few of them. Yeah. So I think we have one from Parth. Traditional brands want to go D2C, and D2C brands want to go offline and omnichannel. How does the panel look at brands moving to go offline, where many traditional brands are struggling? And to this, anyone would like to answer this?
Uh, I'll just share. See, the basis for the brands to go omni-channel is primarily to enable the seamless buying experience and post-sales support. So, if you are able to do it, with the limited, while optimizing the cost, you just need to build upon buying experience and post-sales, and I think you're ahead then.
Perfect. I think
And
I'm getting a lot
Vishesh,
of messages from my team.
one additional point I want to leave with everybody on that same question. Whether a brand has done something in the past or not, India is a phygital market. You're going to have physical and digital. What percentage proportion is each founder and brand's own strategy? However, the additional part that I want to leave everyone is best brands globally are actually built, ultimately, scale is derived on financial engineering. Best house of brands have been built on how efficient you are in using your capital and what's the financial engineering you've been able to do at the back end. And that's where use all forms of capital, use equity and dilutive capital for experimental new lines of business, use debt for pattern driven businesses to continue to grow. And that's how, if you engineer yourself and don't fall into the pitfalls that a brand in the past had to do, that's how you should scale an omni-channel approach as well.
Thank you. I think we are running out of time, so I wish I could take more questions, but we'll have to wrap up. And I'm getting a lot of these messages. But thank you everyone for joining. I think it's been very, very interactive, very, very learning, or it's just insightful. And thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Nice
Bye.
chatting with
Cheers.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.